Kelly.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So, as you know, Jen, we've known each other a long time. And I've been creating these little video series where I'm taking a look back, sort of a retrospective look back across the spectrum of families that I've known forever and worked with, and just trying to learn from that history for our future families and our future therapists. And it brought me to this article that I found that talked about what if parents really were more of the indicators of progress and successful outcomes for kids on the autism spectrum, which in our field is, unusual. I think our field's getting better at doing a strong clinical interview and including the parents' goals, where they're at different aspects of their journey. But I really wanted to talk about that. Specifically for you and I in our topic today, one thing I'm hearing from the parents that I've been interviewing is they just want their children to be safe, happy, healthy, as independent as they possibly can for themselves, and to have a group of people, a tribe, whether it's friends and families that they spend time with. So I want you to take, if you could, to tell the audience in 2 or 3 minutes just about Dylan and how he came to be given a diagnosis on the autism spectrum.
Great. Well, thanks for having me again. Right before he turned 2, I just noticed a lot of differences in him. He stopped he had probably about 30 to 50 words, and then he completely stopped talking. He stopped responding to his name. He stopped gesturing. He was very social and friendly, always smiling at people when he was a baby, but then he just stopped waving, he stopped pointing, all these weird things. And at the same time, I was having Ethan. So I had an infant. I thought maybe Dylan was just mad at me because I was having another baby, and he wanted all my attention. So my other son was doing everything super early. It was crazy. And then so I couldn't get Dylan potty trained. Then he started having behaviors, started having tantrums, aggression. And then I have this other little guy that is doing everything early. So I can't get Dylan to talk. And yet at the time, Ethan's 15 months old and saying full sentences. I can't get Dylan potty trained. Ethan decides one day just to go on the potty and potty trains himself before 2 years old. So I'm really what's happening here? So I decided that we need to move back to California and we need to be aggressive. I need to get him diagnosed. I need to get help. So that's what we did. And within a week of moving back to California, we went to see a doctor, and he was diagnosed that week. And it was really, even though I knew for, I would say 2 years that Dylan had autism, I was devastated. It really hit home that this is real. And the doctor, as nice as, he was and trying to be helpful, he looked at me and looked at Dylan and said, he's in his own little world, isn't he? And he looked at me and told me that Dylan will probably never talk. He will probably never get potty trained. He will never be in a normal classroom or a regular classroom. He will probably never drive. He will never have a job. He will never live alone. He will never get married. And I just felt like someone just took, a shovel to my head, and it was devastating.
So tell me, where is he now? What's he doing?
Okay, so yeah, he's doing, we come a long way through great help and intervention. So Dylan is in a transition adult program. He's in his 3rd year. He's doing job training and learning community and life skills. He absolutely loves animals, and he actually is doing job training and volunteering at the OC Animal Care Shelter.
Awesome.
And loves that. and he's obsessed with books. So he wants to work at the library, but I'm always worried that he's going to come home with some books in the backpack. But he's done really well. He still would be considered probably, I would say, on the moderate to, I consider it severe because he's always going to need assistance and not be able to live on his own. He will not be able to drive, but he can do a lot of amazing things.
Well, you and I have been, I've known Dylan since he first was diagnosed. For disclosure, I haven't treated him in a long time, but we have stayed together since he was, from the time he was 4 till he was 21. And in light of, I started this video series actually just to talk about parents' journeys and help behavioral therapists focus on like what are parents saying they need. You know, like they want their children healthy, happy. They want their children safe. They want their children to be as independent possible and have a social group of people. And so, unfortunately, safety is kind of at the top of everyone's mind right now due to the tragedy of the family who son and mom passed away in the fire. So I put ahead my safety talk, and I couldn't think of a better person to talk about safety with than you. Because we've been through so much together and you have had a lot of extreme experiences that have become quite positive. And so when I was on staff at UCI, we were given a grant to help create and look at whether the needs were in the field of autism. And I did create this safety assessment because as BCBAs, you know, we have to create that content. There aren't a lot of good assessment tools that look at safety. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. But it was the categories that I know in my ABA assessments working with families, I think are super important. So I'm going to walk you through this assessment tool really quick. And you may or may not have these, and that's okay. But I know you and I have talked about them over the years, but it gives an idea of all the details parents need to think about. So let me ask you, do you know, are your fire alarms working?
Yes, we definitely test them on a regular basis. And we also have a fire extinguisher, and we have a 2-story house, so I make sure that we have ladders there under the bed. And then we also do social stories and kind of safety tests with them with Dylan and my other son.
When the alarm goes off, how does Dylan respond to that sound? Because I know my stepdaughter does not like that sound and gets really upset.
Dylan actually, for auditory, he does not, that does not bother him. He actually acts like he'll look at me, but it doesn't bother him. Actually, that kind of concerns me sometimes.
Right, and he's a heavy sleeper.
Yes.
So one thing, so I'm glad your fire alarms are working. I'm glad you have fire extinguishers and ladders. What made me think maybe for you guys is I wondered about putting a voice command fire alarm in his bedroom.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to try that.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Because I think
he's a big guy. I mean, that is my worry, is if something were to happen and that I have to physically try to, you know, get him up when he's in a deep sleep and try to get him, you know, down the stairs and outside. And he's like 6 feet tall, and you know, I'm 5'2", and he outweighs me a bit.
So as a practitioner and also your friend, when I heard of the tragedy, I immediately thought of Dylan. And I thought, we need to get him a voice command fire alarm in his bedroom because I feel like he'd respond to your voice if he was going to respond to anything. So let's track that down. And what about a designated meeting area outside of your house? Do you?
Yeah, we have 2. One is like in the back, right in the backyard, or one is right in the front, just depending on how you get out. So there's like a grassy area, and then there's a spot in our patio.
How did you practice with him? How did you get him to practice and know?
We created a social story that had Dylan's very visual, so he responds to both, you know, written out things, but he really likes photographs as opposed to text. So, and then making it personal. If we add like our names on there, he seems to respond. And so it's a whole game plan. So we have that, but we practice probably We probably should practice more, but probably I'd say every other month we practice.
Awesome. Do you have a first aid kit?
Yes, we have a couple. We have, especially during COVID right now,
Yep.
we have one, we actually have one, we have two bathrooms. So we have one in each bathroom, and then we have one in each car, and we have one in the kitchen.
Do you have prescriptions readily accessible?
Yes, so I actually have them not just for us and always have a backup bag, but I also have some at my parents' house. So just in case anything were to happen, that we have a backup supply.
Great, great. Okay, what if you got separated? Does Dylan have a way to identify himself?
Yes. So Dylan works on a daily, it's called a morning journal. Um, he can now actually tell all his personal information. Um, I have cards and things. I can't get him to wear an identification um, bracelet or anything like that, but he is able to say now his full name, my name, his address, his phone number, my email address, so he can identify everything if he were asked. He can also type it out.
Okay, what if he were, you guys, it was a fire or natural disaster and you all got separated and he was having a hard time tripping, as we say with Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he'd be able to respond then? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So we try to have like written out information, but yeah, I'm not sure. And our neighbors all know him too. So everybody knows information about him, and everybody has my parents' contact information too. So
one thing that comes to my mind as I'm walking through this with everyone else right now is if maybe in a hidden location. I know this is like this weird, like I think you just have to be out of the box thinkers right now. What do you think of that?
yeah, that's a great idea. Kind of like how people have a hidden key, like we
Yeah.
have like in one of those fake rocks or something.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay. And then do you have water, food, blankets? Like
Yes.
if been of a natural disaster, if you had to take a kit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually have a whole setup in two locations that we could grab.
I thought you did. Okay. One thing that also came to mind to me is I know Dylan loves a weighted blanket.
Mm-hmm.
They have fire resistant weighted blankets. I don't know if his is, but that was something to
It should, yeah, his is actually.
Okay.
I did invest in that.
All right. So for the purposes of this, I can't go through all the fire needs, but
Yeah.
I want to show how BCBA therapists in our assessments really need to work with families on like home safety and how vast that can be. So for example, one of the dilemmas is a lot of our kids can't be home alone. Mm-hmm. And some families, their houses are locked up so the kids can't go out, which I know you went through some of that time where you had safety locks on the doors. And so as a field, we need to reconcile that a little bit. But I know, for instance, Dylan cannot remain home alone, correct?
Yeah, he needs 24 hours. Since he was a baby, he's very limited on the amount of time he sleeps. And he'll stay up all night. And I think that's when I worry the most. And then, of what could happen. And then it makes me have a hard time sleeping.
So that means that as a therapist, it's super important to have not only a sleeping plan for Dylan, which I know we've worked through for years,
yeah.
but also making sure that he's safe if he is awake, and knows what to do if he's awake.
I thought of two things. One is like, I could totally see the scenario, and I would worry two things of trying to physically get Dylan up and down the stairs, and then also because he is up at night many times, even though I don't let him use the stove or the oven, that's, obviously when I'm awake, but if I worry about like, what if he sees something on TV and tries to reenact it. Or if he decides, hey, like he decides one night, hey, I'm actually going to make a grilled cheese sandwich or something, and turns on the stove and, you know, something happens. So I think those are two of my biggest fears.
How do you keep him safe at night right now? I mean, I know for a long time you didn't sleep, and you didn't sleep till he was asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But and I know we also spent a lot of time on, and your other therapist, after I stopped working with you, on teaching him what to do, what he could do when if he was awake.
Yeah. So it's gotten a million times better. He does not bother me at night anymore. I mean, he used to pound on the door and want me downstairs. He has a set of kind of like a list of what he can do if he's unable to sleep. He can watch TV downstairs. He uses his iPad. He can take a warm bath, and now I'm at the point where I feel comfortable. I used to worry about he likes a hot bath, but you know, he'd crank it all the way up. He's learned temperature safety now. So that's a big thing. Also, we have, he loves books and figurines, especially of animals. So we have a set downstairs. And then if he wants to eat or drink through his occupational therapist, we've taught him how to make simple snacks and meals that he can make without using the microwave stove or oven, and he has been totally compliant with that. And we're at the point we don't need like extra locks. But I will say that I've always made sure, we've been in this house for quite a long time, but one important thing for Dylan is to make sure that he is in that, first of all, a freestanding location, just for volume, and safety.
So, the safety assessment tool that I have that I'm going to make available to people does talk about setting up a wandering plan and sharing with your network. It also talks about hospital safety. I know Dylan's been in the hospital. It talks about natural disasters. And so it is something I'm going to share for free with families. A lot of creating it is frankly going through your life's journey with you. Yeah. I did it as, you know, obviously when I work with adults, but it's so personal when you feel these stories and I think, oh my God, what would we do for Dylan? And a couple things that came to my mind were, if Dylan couldn't get downstairs because he's a big kid, what would we do?
That's why, I mean, we actually have fire extinguishers upstairs. We always have our phones, you know, where we can hopefully automatically call someone. That's why I have the ladders. I do worry physically on that still, you know. We do have a plan that if we could, like somebody else could get out first, like if we have to jump. I know it sounds crazy, but having like, we have an extra like smaller mattress in the garage that maybe we could throw down because his landing area would be asphalt.
Brilliant.
So just like, you know, super every scenario plan that we could. I try to teach him to not only about actual fire, about smoke, like if there's a situation where, you know, what to do, and like, you know, trying to, you know, stay away, don't open a hot door. Like we're trying to teach him like all of these things, you know. But yeah, having just kind of every plan possible, you know.
The other thing I thought of is just like when we used to put big stuffed SpongeBob in the back seat because he would, to protect you driving, become so aggressive in the back seat. One thing that I thought of was if he's outgrown that SpongeBob one, but if upstairs, if you have a bigger kind of almost like bean bag, if you could push him down, like we used to have to do, like push him down and then drag the bean bag down.
Yeah, that's smart. We actually have part of the sleeping strategy. We have a huge body pillow that's almost like same size as him, and that would be a great idea of trying to use that to get him down the stairs.
Yeah, so maybe like that and a beanbag and a sheet, and then you can just pull the sheet down because he's
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah, definitely.
Gravity.
You know, it's interesting that, you know, this is going to maybe sound weird, but another thing I worry about are kids with safety. And I know I have several friends that have similar situations and big kids like Dylan. Um, our kids, a lot of times, like, you know, they see things and they actually react that they think it's funny,
Yep.
like, you know, from all these cartoons and everything. Like, you know, he's a big Tom and Jerry guy. Like, he's into Simpsons. He's into, like, you know, natural disasters and destruction and things blowing up. But in cartoons, like, they come back out in the same time frame. And though I know Dylan's very smart and aware and he understands danger, there's that whole aspect too of, like, you know, would they really understand the true, like, if it was happening in real time, that, you know, the severity of it,
That's a really great point.
you know.
We'll have to think more about that. All right, that's our next thing. We've got to.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We could do a whole series per topic. Not safety, but each thing.
And of course, I vividly remember the famous Labor Day where Dylan became so upset and was so aggressive that he was quite violent towards you.
Yeah.
And we had to put in change a lot after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the great news for families is, if, like, I can remember you were so detailed and diligent about things that it was almost like you pushed me, where I was like, I need to think about it. I know what to do. And I know your other team members, you kept him on it all the time. And because of that, Dylan at 21 is quite safe.
Yes.
I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but he is as safe as I think he can be. Just based on our conversation, I think we both know a few things we need to add and think to change. But just getting this, thanking you so much. Jen, what I wanted to do is take a minute to highlight you as a warrior mom, as they say. I've heard people say. One of my favorite things is a quote from Temple Grandin: "You've got to keep autistic children engaged with their world, and you cannot let them tune out." And here you had a doctor saying, wow, he's in his own world, he might not ever come out. And now Dylan is this incredibly funny, silly, the mayor of your town where you live, who's taking the bus with people, but he's taking the bus, he's making his own snacks, and he's quite as safe as he can be for whatever we know right now. He's healthy, he's happy, he has a tribe. And so you're meeting those outcomes. And you know, you work in the field. You did lots of years with Autism Speaks. You are now Senior Manager of Development for Special Olympics, which focuses on health. A lot of people don't realize that in Special Olympics, it's not just about the sports. It's about friendships and camaraderie, and you have a whole health screening component. So I want to thank you for your time today. I want to ask you to join me on a journey to look at, tear this apart and really make sure we're making sure our kids safe, and we'll dive deep, and for being vulnerable and saying, like, gosh, I don't know, and me too saying, like, I don't know, but we've got to get better. So we'll do this and work on it to help the benefit of other families.
I'm all in. I love it. And, you know, I just want to say to families too, like, reflecting back, like, you know, sometimes you forget how intense it was and wild it was, and it does get better. But again, there's always things that we can learn from and do better as well. But yeah. I'm all in, Kelly, so thank you.
We got to get safety planning, happy, healthy, independent as possible, and a tribe.
Definitely.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Kelly.